I'm Fletcher Rhoden, and this is Quotes and Quips. Today, words of wisdom from Groucho Marx. Quotes and Quips is brought to you by my website, FletcherRhoden.com. That's where you can find links to my authors page at Amazon.com. There you can buy my books in paperback or for Kindle, many of them in audiobook format. And there's a link to my Spotify artist page. That's where you can download my various albums. Last year, 2024, I had a 4-album series called Quadrilogy. This year I've got a brand new pop album called I'm Possible. Now you can download those from Spotify or from anywhere across the internet. Wherever you like to download your favorite music, you can download mine. But from my website, there's free music you can get nowhere else. So check it out. Okay, Groucho. Quoted him a couple times in our first year of Quotes and Quips. We're going to do so again. Groucho tells us humor is reason gone mad. Humor is reason gone mad. Well, this brings up an interesting question. What is comedy? What is humor? People have tried to identify it in a number of ways. Mel Brooks said, if I break my fingernail, it's tragedy. If you break your legs, it's comedy. But I think the best way to define humor, I like Groucho's definition. Humor is reason gone mad. And he means several things by this, I think. The essential meaning of it is that when reason goes mad, humor is the antidote. Humor is the remedy. Humor is the natural reaction. It won't be for everybody, but it was for him. It was like breathing. He reacted to inhaling by exhaling something funny. He speaks of humor here as a coping mechanism for a world in which reason itself has gone mad. When reason goes mad, and Groucho was a product of the 20th century. So he endured 2 world wars and the Great Depression. So for him, he had seen reason go mad. The world wars were reason gone mad. That's what they were. World War II in particular. It was seen that way. It was seen that way so much so that it gave rise to existentialism in the wake of World War II. People began to doubt that God could exist. The world had gone so mad, and reason had been so overtaken by madness that the world ceased to believe that there could be any reason to exist. And God had long been one of those reasons. But with reason gone mad, reasons also seemed obliterated. Not decimated, obliterated. So, with that, what can be left but humor? In the face of reason gone mad, there can only be one thing: humor. You can only laugh. What else can you do? One might ask. And Groucho's experience told him that. He and his brothers famously brought great comedy to audiences who were in despair. They were in despair of their political futures, of their monetary fortunes, of their place in life. It is said of comedy, as long as we're talking about the definition of comedy or humor, it is the poor man's revenge. If I were asked, I'd say comedy is the poor man's revenge. It's the way that the poor man can stick it to the rich guy, even though he can't at home, he can in the movie theater, he can when he's watching the little guy get one over on the big guy on screen. When the poor man makes the fool of the rich man, which he cannot do in regular life. the rich man makes a fool of the poor man at work, in restaurants, where the customer abuses the hard-working service person. Only in comedy can the poor man get his comeuppance. And that's why we see characters like Chaplin's Little Tramp or Bugs Bunny, who is largely based on Groucho Marx's character, Groucho. Julius Marx's character, Groucho. So, really, when reason goes mad, the mad get even. And that's what comedy is. Humor is reason gone mad. Well, in that way, humor results from reason gone mad. But not really what he meant. Even though it can be well understood in that context, or in any context. Humor is the result of reason gone mad. But what he means to say, I think, is that let's look at, for example, very quickly, the rule of threes. There are many rules of three. There are three that I know of. One is that jokes generally have a structure, which is a three-part structure. One thing establishes. A second thing establishes a pattern between the two things. And a third thing upends the pattern in a humorous way. So if you've ever heard a joke about three inmates trying to escape from a POW camp, that's a rule of threes joke. Because the first one sets it up, the second one affirms it to create a pattern, and the third one deviates from the pattern in a humorous and surprising way. But there's another rule of threes, and that goes like this. Every joke has these ingredients. T-H-R-E-E-S. T-H-R-E-E-S. It spells threes, right? I covered this in Fletch Me Anything. Threes, the rule of threes. This is a different rule of threes, but it's still a rule of threes, okay? T-H-R-E-E-S. And any good joke should have these three ingredients. Target, hostility, realism, emotion, exaggeration, and surprise. If you want to write them down, target, that's T, hostility, that's H, realism, that's R, emotion, that's E, exaggeration, that's E, and surprise, that's S. T-H-R-E-E-S. Every good joke must have these ingredients. The most important are target, you've got to be laughing at the right thing. You want to punch up to the rich people, you're not laughing at poor people, you're laughing at the rich person. That's why it's the poor man's revenge. And surprise, you got to get there first. That's 98% of any joke. The other things are all in there. But when Groucho says humor is reason gone mad, what he reminds us of is that humor must have certain elements to it. He's saying reason plus madness equals humor. Okay? Not that humor results from, you could do it as a division thing, but it's not. It's, what he means to say, without getting too mathematical about it, is that T-H-R-E-E-S, target, hostility, realism is number 3. So in order to have humor, you must have some reason. It can't be irrational. Nothing is funny. Tangerine armpit, lamppost, rug chair. That's not funny. How about rug chair, lamppost says, how do you cockle-doodle-doo? Well, it doesn't make sense. It's not funny because there's no reason to it. You got to have realism. Target, hostility, realism, emotion, exaggeration, surprise. It's got to be, the joke has to be born in some kind of realistic scenario that we can get our heads around. Or else people are just going to say, but people don't do that. Or, but that just doesn't make sense. In order for it to be funny, it has to make sense. So it has to be sensible. There has to be reason as part of the equation. It can't just be Goose Pimple's ceiling fan feather duster meets an armchair and they say Schnabelfreuden Glupen. I mean, unless you're Jerry Lewis, maybe you can sell that. But I couldn't. I don't even think Groucho could. I don't even think Jerry Lewis could. So if you want to have comedy, you got to have reason. But you've also got to have madness. Okay? Let's look at the threes again. Target, hostility, realism, emotion, exaggeration, surprise. Okay? So we know about target. You got to be laughing at the right thing. No one's going to laugh at some guy stomping on a puppy's head. You got to be surprising. If they can see the joke coming, they're not going to laugh, no matter who they're laughing at. Hostility, they should be hostile toward that target. Generally they are. Realism, we talked about that. That's reason. Now the other two. Emotion and exaggeration. There must be emotion in your joke or in your thing. If there's no emotion, why do we care? Why does anybody care? Why are we drawn into the joke or the scenario if none of the characters feel any emotion? Then we don't feel emotion, then we're not invested. Okay? But also, exaggeration. There must be exaggeration in a comedic situation. Comedy thrives on exaggeration. Without exaggeration, it can be said that there really is no comedy. All comedy exaggerates reason. That's what makes it comedy. With comedy, there must be some exaggeration, and there should be some emotion. You can maybe do without emotion, you shouldn't. But you must have exaggeration. It's got to be bigger than it would normally be. That's why it's outrageous and funny. Now, take emotion and exaggeration. Okay? Emotion plus exaggeration equals madness. Emotion, exaggerated emotion, which is, as we've seen in other quotes and quips, the complete lack of reason. Reason gone mad is what happens when emotion and exaggeration become one. Okay? So, what he's telling us is, you got to start with reason, and then you've got to contort it with enough emotion and exaggeration to create madness. And therein, you'll find the essence of humor. Now, it almost may seem foolish for me to break down something like comedy, which is ethereal, into something mathematical and, rigid in that way. Because you can't really apply mathematics to comedy. Not really. But you can better understand how it works by understanding what the components of it are. Things aren't funny for no reason. Okay? Nothing is funny for no reason. You gotta have reason. People laugh at people. They don't laugh at inanimate objects. There's never been a joke in the world that says a lamppost stood on the street corner. Because it's not funny. Unless the lamppost says to the mailbox, anything for me? But then it's not a lamppost. It's a human being. And it's transmorgified into more than a lamppost. Because lampposts don't speak. When we make jokes about talking animals, it's funny because animals don't speak. They're realistic because they're animals. Animals exist. But it's exaggerated because they don't speak. And the only reason an animal is funny is because it says something funny, and that's what humans do. Because humans really only laugh at other humans. Humans laugh at people doing things. That's what people laugh at. Virtually nothing else. I dare you to find me an instance of somebody laughing at something if they're not laughing at a person doing a thing. There's a subject and there's a verb in that humor. Always. And when it's exaggerated, when there's a person, there must be emotion. When that emotion is exaggerated, it becomes madness. And when reason buckles to madness, you can find humor. Now, there's lots of different kinds of humor. And Groucho was a vaudevillian. So he was a madcap. His whole thing was exaggeration. He sang in an exaggerated manner. His expressions were exaggerated. His mannerisms were exaggerated. His mustache and eyebrows were exaggerated. They were fake. They were painted on. The long cigar was crazy long, exaggerated. His motions, his walk, it's all iconic, but it's all exaggerated. That's all mad. That's all reason gone mad. If you look at any Marx Brothers movie, what you see is reason, the normal world, the straights, the world of high society, the world of governmental politics, the world of university. These are establishment, hierarchical things. Reason dominates these things. When the Marx Brothers show up, what do they bring? Madness, chaos. They drive the emotions of the straights to points of exaggeration. These things all work together. For the Marx Brothers, the key to their comedy was bringing madness to reason. Now, a lot of comedy is this way. There are two ways to approach comedy. There is, especially in the sitcom world, there is the center of reason in a wacky world, like let's say the guy on WKRP in Cincinnati, who's a progressive thinking but average guy who's got common ideas about revamping a radio station so it would be more successful, but he's surrounded by a nutty salesman, a kooky weatherman, a daffy program director, a sexy receptionist, a loopy DJ. He's the center of calm in a wacky world. Think about the character, the boy in Caddyshack. I don't even know his name, but the caddy in Caddyshack. He's an average guy, average kid, surrounded by goofball, rich, weirdo golfers and a nutty janitor. So he's the center of calm in a wacky world. There's also a wacky character in a calm world. So that's the Marx Brothers. They're the center of wackiness in an otherwise realistic, calm world. Or Bugs Bunny was a creature of wackiness which brought madness to an otherwise reasonable world. So you can either have the calm in the center of the storm, or the storm in the center of the calm. But either way, the intention is to bring madness to reason. And that is the essence of comedy, according to Groucho, or one of them. Now, Groucho brought madness to reason. But if you bring reason to madness, you're still accentuating the difference. It's still the difference, it's still the conflict, it's still the juxtaposition of reason and madness which creates humor. In his day, in the early 20th century, or in our day, the early 21st century, or centuries prior, or centuries to come. So that's something to think about, courtesy of Groucho and me, here on Quotes and Quips. I'll be here in 2 weeks, and every other Monday throughout 2025, right here on this YouTube channel, Mondays at noon, alternating Mondays, because on every other Monday I'm doing my other new show, Fletcher Rhoden's Pet Peeves. That'll be right here on this YouTube channel every other Monday at noon. You can also see reruns of Quotes and Quips from 2024. They're still posted right here. And there's a 2023 show called Tracking the Lone Wolf. That's on a different YouTube channel called Tracking the Lone Wolf. You should subscribe to that, buy the book, check out this, check out my website, buy my books and my records, and tune in again. Until then, bye, Mary.